All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Dylan, and here ex I will be explaining to you again another coding problem. So the problem is we need to write a program to swap the adjacent elements as the following conditions. First, if the size of the given element list is even, then swap each pair of adjacent element. Second, if the size of a given element is odd, then swap each pair of adjacent element except the last element. So, for example, we have the input 5 and it's 5. Which represents the number of the length of the list, the size of your array. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have these numbers 5, 1, 4, 2, 8. And you want to make the program to produce this result by swapping each adjacent element. So 5, 1, it will swap to 1, 5, and then 4, 2 to 4. And since it's odd, you want to leave the last element, so not swapping between 4 and 8. So the other case is when it's even, when n is even, you want to swap all elements. So 1, 2, 3, 0. So because for odd number of array, like there's a remaining single element, so you just want to leave it like that. So I already have the code over here. Um, so this is just the code I have. And let's first, before solving the problem, let's try to analyze this code and then see the mistake. Okay, let's just try to run this. So let's say make the input is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it gives us 0 to 0, 4. Okay, that's the output that we wanted. Let's try input n. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have odd number of elements and it gives us this error. So when you encounter a problem like this in programming, it's very important uh, to think critically, uh, especially during the looping, right? Because you want to keep track of each iteration, like what is going on, which code is being executed, because we have multiple conditions here, right, for the instruction. So, so this is just the note that I already have. Let's just try to track what happened here. So let's say we have even number of array 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is the result that we uh, achieve. Okay. So if we can just take a look at here, first case is when n is even. Yep, it's 4. So here, when you initialize an array on in Java, um, each element will be assigned as 0. So this is what you will have. The values for all elements will be 0, right? And in Java, array cannot expand its size. So once you initialize it with a specific value, it will always be that length. It will always be that size. You cannot expand. And the initial values for each element is 0. So once we declare that variable list, this is what we have. And then we go to take a look on this looping, this iteration. So on the first iteration where index is 0, starting at 0, right? And we input an element from that specific index by the input. So let's say our input is 1. So this is the condition. If uh, I mod 2 is equal to 0, so it means if it's even, right, it will print the I plus 1 element of it. So 0 mod 2 is 0, so it will print the I plus 1. Let's just say j is equal to 0, just write a new line. j is equal to 0 plus 1, which is equal to 1. So instead of printing the first element, which we just append to the array, we print this, right? That is not what we want. And it keeps going. So for I is equal to 1, so that means j is equal to 1 plus, oh, no. Because here, if otherwise, if it's odd, then we just want to print element at index of I, right? So, so we have 1, 2, and this is the previous output. So we just uh, yeah, we get this from the previous one, and then I 2. So I is equal to 1, index at 1, and index at 1 we have element, the integer is 2, and it keeps going. And this is what you get as an output. Even though as a list, if you try to print the list here, this is the actual values of your list. But the output that is given here is not what you wanted, right? And so the second case is where n is odd. So in this example, we have 5. It goes the same thing. At first, the list, your list is initialized, and all of the values for each element is 0. It goes the same way. However, at the end of iteration, it will gives you this error. So let's just try to run it, and you can see what happens. So basically from uh, this iteration, it goes the same way as the previous one. And the only difference is in the last iteration. So when I is equal to 4, so 4 is divisible by 2, right? And no, 4 mod 2 is 0. That means it's even. So j is equal to 4 plus 1 is equal to 5. So you're trying to print uh, the value at index j, which is 5. And we know that the the length of this array, the size of it is 5. And then remember, in programming, everything starts from 0. So even for the last element, its index is 4. So you're trying to get this 5. It's a non-existing element, and it's so if you can just read the error message, right? It says index 5 out of bounds for length. So it is also important for you to read the error message properly. Some people just ignore and they just have no idea what's going on with their code, but it is very crucial. So when you get an error, the first thing you want to check is the error message. So I think by just looking at the message, it's pretty obvious. Like with computer trying to tell you like what kind of error it's getting, like why is this this code is not working properly. So this is the solution that I already have. I just try to run it first, and then I will explain how it works. Let's say input is n is equal to 4, 1 2 3 4. Yep, 2 1 4 3. And then let's try for odd numbers of input. 5 1 2 3 5, and it gives you the um, the output that you wanted. So let me just try to explain. So for the first few lines of code, they're just the same. There are no changes. So here, instead of printing the value directly once you um, set a value for each index in the list, I just try to uh, I just try to fill each element with its corresponding value from your input. So, and then just try the algorithm here. So it's very simple. The code that I have written here is basically just swapping two elements for every two elements. Um, let's just let me just try to write it. It's quite difficult to explain algorithms sometimes, so let's just give you an example. So if we have, let's say, this array of 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So what this code does is swapping between the two elements and then swap between two elements. And uh, the iteration does not go for each element. Instead, it goes for every two elements. So in the first iteration, let's just I is equal to 0. So that's the first iteration. So as you can see here, I could have a variable called temp to store the value that you want to swap. So it here temp list I plus 1. So I plus 1 is 1, and then at index 1 we have value of 2, and then list I plus 1. So I plus 1 refers to this element at this index, and then we want to assign that value with this one. So in the first iteration, it will become like this: 2, 1, 3, 4. Right. So, and then the second iteration, I equal to 1. Temp is going to be I plus 1. Okay. 1 plus 1 is 2, and then at index of 2 we have 3. So we just swap 3 and 4 simply. 2, 1, 3, apologize, 4, 3. Yep. So that's basically it, right? And it is less complex because you just need to iterate um, n divided by 2 times. That's the number of iterations you need for this algorithm. Compared to the first code where you need to iterate n numbers of times. So you have n4, it will iterate 4 times. Here I have n is equal to 4, and then you just need to iterate 2 times. And yeah, this is where it shows that you only the increment you increment I by 2 instead of by 1, because um, we swap between two elements, right? And what if it's odd, right? What if another case is odd? Let's say we have n is equal to 5, 3, 4, 5, and there's no difference. It's basically the same. Um, because we just need to add this n minus 1, right? So n is equal to 5. 5 minus 1 is equal to 4. So from 4, you divide it by 2. You only need 2 iterations. So it's in terms of complexity, it's better in terms of efficiency, right? Because you only need 2 iterations. It does the same thing as for both cases. That's why you need to. But let's just try to see if I remove this. It will gives you an error for odd number of element. See? Index out of bound. But if you add this, it will show solve the problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, that's all my explanation. I hope you guys have a clear idea of how to solve this problem. Thanks for watching.